Yeah, this is session 3 of our Basecamp, and today we are going to look at something interesting. We shall have some bit of practical, yeah. But before that, we are gonna go into more details into the Cairo programming language. Yeah. So the language behind Starknet is called Cairo, and yeah. So in this session, the headline can be Cairo data types, because we are gonna look at a lot of data types in the Cairo programming language. Yeah, yeah. Of course, I'm the tutor. So this is my X handle. So I at Bossa Josh, and yeah, I'm proud to call myself a blockchain developer, and as well I'm building a startup called SwiftRamp. So you can decide to follow me on at Bossa Josh, and then you can follow SwiftRamp as well. So the Cairo programming language, yeah. So to differ from other other blockchains, yeah, Starknet. So the other session I was talking about why Starknet uses has its standalone programming language, and I remember telling us that the Cairo programming language is not only limited to Starknet blockchain, yeah. So you can use it to program other things, yeah. Not only blockchain dApps or what, yeah. So you can use it to program other things. But and then I remember telling us that so the power behind the Cairo programming language is its ability to prove, yeah. So just imagine maybe you are working on a scenario where you need to prove something exists before you. And so anything that entails that needs a lot of all these programming languages have got their 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 power. Like whenever they are making a programming language, there is always that thing that they look up to, that this language is specifically good for this. It's better. For example, Rust could be better than C++ at this, maybe. So there's always that use case. For example, Python is good for with data because it has a lot of data classes. Yeah. So there are very many ways you can express data and how you can store data. That's why Python is used a lot, like in ML and AI, because AI is data, and there are very many cases you can handle data in Python. So every language has that top edge over the other. So even Cairo programming language, I remember telling us that. So in scenarios where you need to prove first, yeah. So where you need to prove something, yeah. So Cairo programming language comes in handy. So we are gonna look at the installation. Let me just. One of the main resources we are gonna use is this. We are going to use the Cairo book quite a lot. So the Cairo book is like our manual. So if I told you to look at the Cairo book, I shared a video of installation on Windows. So for those of us that use Mac and Linux, the installation is very, very direct. But for those of us who use Windows, yeah, I shared that video, the link to the YouTube video. So I was saying we're gonna, guys, in case you get any difficulty where you can't hear me properly, you can just put it in the chat. I would want to communicate like properly. So in case you have an issue with my audio, you can just reach out. So we are gonna be using this book, and I recall sharing the link. So the link is right here. There is a bit for installation on Windows. So I just don't know if many of us installed it right here. I don't use Windows. So can you just confirm if many of you were able to install it properly? before you install Cairo, you're supposed to install, like, you need to have Rust, yeah. So in this bit here, they introduced to us how you can go about the installation, and then they talk about installation for Linux. No, you don't need. Let me just read this out. Do I need enough space? Do I need enough space on my PC? No, not quite a lot of space. It's not a must that you need quite a lot of space. So this is not like, because this is just code, so you don't need quite a lot of but you need, of course, to have space, but you don't need like to have a lot of space, because this is code, so we are gonna be running code, so you don't necessarily need to be having a lot of hard disk space. Maybe, but of course, so I just want to get a thumbs up if at all we are able to install it on Windows. We're able to install it on Windows, guys. I just want to know, because I like everything we are gonna do depends on the installation. So I just want to get a thumbs up if at all you are able, and then if at all you are not able, and then as well I can assist. So can you give me a thumbs up if at all you? So let me give us. So if at all you've ever worked with Rust, yeah, when you run this command, let me open my terminal right here. So when you run this command, I think it's Scarb version, yeah. So after, if at all your Cairo was able to install successfully, when you run Scarb is like the package manager for Cairo programming language, yeah. So just like how it is for Rust that you have, just like how it is for Rust that you have, uh, what is it called? I'm forgetting. It's called. Okay, it's good to know that someone installed it. So Scarb. So Rust has its own. Forgetting. I'm forgetting that package manager for Rust, but anyways, but just like Rust, so Scarb is also a package manager for Cairo programming language, and I want to put this clear that Cairo programming language, it was like they borrowed some few concepts from the Rust programming language. So yeah, so there are some similarities here and there, yeah, but not everything is as it is in Rust. So, but definitely, if at all someone has a good understanding of Rust, yeah, the Rust programming language, it's easy for you to get along with Cairo programming language. And for those who don't have any understanding of Rust, it's also not a crime. Like, you can follow along. Let's see. So someone was saying in the chat, yeah, they installed it. That's good to know that you were able to install it properly. So after you've installed and you run Scarb dash version, it should give you the version. So Scarb, I said, this is the package manager, and then this is the Cairo programming language version you have, and then after that, so we are gonna be using VS Code a lot. For I personally, I use, that's what I use. Thank you that you've installed properly. That's good. So I was saying, I personally, I use VS Code a lot because it's pretty easy for me. But I understand there are other package managers. I understand there is Atom for Mac, yeah. And then way back when I was starting programming, there used to be Sublime Text, but Sublime Text is a bit limited. Yeah, you find that the maintenance around it is so limited. So yeah, so I use I should say I use VS Code a lot. That's what I use primarily for my coding. So if I told you how to follow this documentation properly, you're saying installing the VS Code extension. So one of the things that the extension helps us to is that, so for example, you will have, an extension makes your coding journey so easy that you find maybe some IntelliSense packages, maybe you will find, uh, you may find, so you in most of the packages you find that they can understand maybe the version of Cairo you are using. So in some cases, just imagine whereby you don't need to write everything. Maybe you can write, yeah, some bits of code, and then the extension can help you finish maybe a line. So let me show us how to get those extensions. So you just type in here, you just go to extension. That's if I told you're using VS Code. Go to extensions right there, and then you put Cairo. So then you put Cairo. So the official version is Cairo 2.0, but this one is saying Cairo 1.0. So it's saying Cairo 1.0. So actually, I'm not supposed to be using this one because right now the updated version of Cairo is 2.0. Then here we have support Cairo syntax. So this is basically two. So support Cairo. So you just, since I had already installed it, but when, if at all it's not yet installed, this button will be able, yeah, and then this other one will be installed, yeah. So there are, and make sure that you don't just install any extension, yeah. For example, this one is root Cairo syntax, yeah. And then, so I would recommend this because this one is Cairo 1.0, and literally we are not using Cairo 1.0. So I would recommend this. So what those extensions do, for example, if at all I didn't have this extension here, yeah, so literally it brings that IntelliSense, like it's the extension is able to tell that, I'm using this programming language. Cairo, it hasn't been around for more than 10 years, yeah. So so because it hasn't been around for more than 10 years, so you find that there are not a lot of maybe extensions or packages for managing its release. So now that, but there is, all I know that there is an official extension, yeah, if at all it wasn't there. So if at all there is no extension, your code, let me try out a case where I don't have an extension, but to just show us, let me try disabling this, yeah. Let me go back to my code and show us. It's so probably that the other one was for syntax. Let me see which other extension let me just try and disable this as well. I think it has to refresh, but you'll notice that before, if at all you don't have any extensions installed, you'll find that your code is not looking nice. We say it's not pretty code, yeah. So you find that you don't have, like, you hardly get these colors maybe on some of the variables or what. But yeah, I just felt like sharing that's about that. So they are saying here you install the VS Code extension. So just to go back to my slides a little bit, so we have looked at the installation. And yeah, so before I go to the anatomy of the Cairo program, let me take us here. So after the installation, then we are gonna go through how to initiate like your first project. Yeah, so first and foremost, it's very important to have a directory where you store all your work. Very, very important. So guys, it's always good to differentiate where we keep our work. So, and it makes your work so orderly. So in Linux, I think as well in Windows, how you do when you're creating a new directory, you say make directory. Yeah. So for example, if I want to create session 3, I would say make directory session and then the name of the session, maybe session 3. Yeah. But since I already created it, let me just show us here session 3 trial. So now when so to list all in Basecamp, I would go. So you can see that session 3 trial is right there. So I'll just go session 3 trial. Yeah, so I'm supposed to change to that directory. So to change to directory, use cd. And then I would advise as well I would advise the Windows users to use PowerShell. Yeah, when I was using Windows quite a lot, I used to use PowerShell a lot. Yeah, PowerShell is next like to the Linux system, so PowerShell will save you a lot of problems. So guys, I just want to try and put back my video and see whether my internet is okay. So in case it's not okay, you just let me know. How you create a directory, you say make directory and change to directory cd. Yeah, so then so I've got my directory session 3 trial, and so we are gonna create so how we create a new project in Starknet. So in Cairo programming language, you use Scarb. Yeah, so then we use Scarb new and then the name, yeah, of the project that you want, session 3 Cairo. So then after you do that, guys, in case you are not understanding anything, in case you're having any difficulty, you just let me know. Either put it in the chat or you can just, yeah, it's better you put it in the chat, then I'll read out. So to start a new project, I want to repeat this. You just say scab new, say then the name of the project. For example, if at all I want to be the name of the project to be, you can just give it a name as long as it helps you, because it's your work, so it's you who knows how you better understand to order, how you best want to order your work. So then scab new, then session 3 Cairo, and then we can go by Cairo test. So now when I cd to session 3 Cairo, you see it will tell me that it has created something. So guys, can you try and create a project as per what I'm sharing? Can we try and do that? I want us to move on the same pace. You just give me a thumbs up in case you're finished with that. So after you've created your project, so then I can initiate Visual Studio Code in that directory. So how you start Visual Studio Code, you just say code, then that means that very directory. So guys, you can see that we have, so this is the code framework, code infrastructure that comes along when I'm initiating the project. So I have lib.cairo here. Yeah. So these are the main files. So on initial project, these are the default files that So I have lib.cairo, yeah. So I have scarb.toml. So the scarb.tml is basically for the dependencies. So everything. So you can see that the name of your project is right there, session 3 Cairo, and then the version. So all the dependencies will have to go in this file, yeah. So just to go a bit to our to go a bit to our to our slides. So guys, you can just give me a thumbs up if that you can give me a thumbs up if at all you are able to install and initiate a new project successfully. So as I've showed us that uh, there is a lib.cairo. So these are the default files. So there is a lib.cairo. So the lib.cairo is for where our main code execution is gonna take place. So anything that you want to run, yeah, in our project is gonna be here. And then the .git ignore is where .git ignore files are. So this is a file where maybe you don't want any. So this is where you put files which you don't want to be visible to the public. For example, after excuse me, after I'm done with if after I'm done with my whatever I'm working on and I've deployed my project, so the in the .git ignore files, I put maybe files like the .m file. .m file is maybe a file where I have my credentials, my secret keys, and then the scarb.tml file is the file I showed to us, yeah, with the program dependencies. So before I head over to, so we are going to use this manual a lot here for the book.cairo lang. So as you can see, so you put your dependencies here, yeah. So the scarb.tml file is like more of a, if at all you've worked with anything in the in Node, you understand that there is always a packet or JSON file where all the dependencies are stored, yeah. So basically that's what the scarb.tml file does. And then you can see this is the structure as I talked about it. You have the lib.cairo, and yeah. So then the other thing to note about is that if at all I have more than if at all you are working on a big project, yeah, you can nowadays with collaboration tools like GitHub and other work management tools for remote work, you can find that everyone maybe is working on an independent file, yeah. And then so a big project can have maybe 100 files, yeah. But I want to let us know that the main execution takes place here. So if at all I have another project right here, and I've got to check.cairo. So when I am writing any file, I use, so how Cairo differentiates that this is a Cairo file, it has to have a .cairo extension, yeah. So if at all I say check.cairo and then I add here anything here, so how we comment in Cairo is similar to other languages. We just say /. So the lib.cairo is like the main execution file. That's if at all I have more than one Cairo file, yeah. The lib.cairo becomes the main execution file where all the other files have to be executed from. So when I so if I've told us that when you have more than one Cairo file, yeah. So in this case I have the check.cairo file, and then I can have another maybe file called auth.cairo. So when I put here auth.cairo, and then I can maybe say this file is for anything. Yeah. So if I want to execute anything here, for it to be executed by the main file, I as well have to call the name of that file, which is auth.cairo. You only call the name, you don't call the extension. So you can see, so all executions take place within that file. Yeah. So that's if I have more than one Cairo file. But if I don't have more than one Cairo file, I can just use the lib.cairo for everything. Hopefully that is clear. Any questions at that moment, guys? You can just put the questions in the chat if at all there is something that you. We can always run this command scarb build. So after you've initiated your project, yeah, so maybe you've installed maybe some dependencies, you can always run scarb build. So scarb build is to build the project dependencies. Yeah. So when I run scarb build, it means now it's running everything and it's compiling the code. Yeah. So after you run scarb build, you find out that you've gotten another file here called the target file. Now this target file, you'll find that there is Sierra. We didn't have the Sierra file. Now this Sierra file is having all the code we had, and it's compiling it down to then remember that architecture of Starknet. Sierra, then Sierra is compiled down to Chasm, which is machine code. So when you build, that's what is happening under the hood. But like you only build after you've made changes in your scarb.tml file. So there is no need to always build if at all I haven't made any changes in the scarb.tml file. So you only build after you've made changes in the scarb.toml file. Yeah. So after we've done that, I said we are going to use a lot this manual here. It's literally like the Bible for Cairo programming. So we set up a new project. So let's look at something here. Yes, start this slideshow. So we are going to look at a lot of concepts which are a bit similar to other programming languages. We are going to look at things like how is data stored, how the common, because I want to let us know, guys, that so when the best way to learn programming is by learning it on first principles. By learning it on first principles, I mean that a lot of things don't change from other languages. Yeah, a lot of things don't change. So when you learn something from first principles, you understand, you don't cram. So, and in one of the common programming concepts with Cairo, we are going to look at variables and mutability. So Cairo uses an immutable memory model. Yeah. So we're going to dive deeper into that. So what does this mean? That memory, yeah, can't be overwritten once memory cells. So how this works is that uh, when, for example, I create a variable, yeah, so it creates a memory cell. Yeah. So okay, let me how best put this clearly, that how data is written to, how data is being written to and stored is that, just understand this, that we have cells. Yeah. And these cells initially they are empty. Yeah. So now when I create a variable, yeah, so when I create a variable, when you create a variable, for example, this is my, so if at all this is my memory cell, so if at all this is my memory cell, so you know when data is being stored, yeah, so all these things are stored on, remember this is data, yeah, and remember as I said all this code is bundled down to bytes of ones and zeros. So the computer, the only language it understands is ones and zeros. So if at all this is my memory cell, and probably, so data by like data is in such a way that it's in this order, yeah. You have can I call them packets where you're supposed to store data here and then there and there. So if at all I've created a variable, maybe I can say let, okay, let me just say we have our, how we create a variable in okay, I just didn't want to, so, or let me just say now, make it clear that probably you've created a variable and you've called this variable name, and name is maybe my name Joseph, so data will get stored here. So and then maybe you create another variable, maybe age, you create another variable, maybe occupation, and then you create another one. Initially when I've created, so now all these variables are into these memory cells. Initially, is something that I want to, I'm going to explain that in details. So someone is saying, how does Cairo handle reassignment? That's what I'm trying to explain. So, but let me use my laptop right here. But I didn't want to go in details at right now, but I think I have no other option besides doing that. So, for example, now let me say, for example, understanding memory cells in Cairo. Yeah. So if at all I come right there, yeah, and now I say, that if I've written maybe, if I intend to create a variable, maybe say let age equals to 20. Yeah. So now this is a variable age. Yeah. So in by default, every variable is immutable. Immutable, I mean it is, once you've created it as immutable, you cannot change it. So this variable age, yeah, so if it's being stored in the memory cell that I was trying to show on the by the diagram illustration, is that initially it's by default it's immutable. So if at all it's immutable, that means I can only read from it. I cannot change, but there is a way how we declare something as to be mutable and immutable. So for example here, I've said variables in Cairo are immutable by default. That's what we've looked at. So by default, it means like here, yeah, here age is immutable. So you can never change and I can never say something. So let me put this in the right. So if I come and say here that let age equals to 20, so when I say age is equal to 20, I cannot come and say let age equals to 30. because age is immutable, you see, my terminal will complain, and like it may not complain, but when you try and run it, it's gonna return an error. So how I declare a mutable, if at all I want to change the value of a variable, I'll have to declare it with a mute keyword. So maybe I've created something and I know it will change. For example, like age is dynamic, so it has to change in the future. So I have to declare it and assign a mute keyword with it. So in that case scenario, when I come and say let mute age is equal to 30, then I come and now I say let age equal to 40. Yeah. So because I declared age, yeah, as mutable, so because I declared age as mutable, that means I gave it a provision that I can change it. So when I add this mute keyword, when this age is being stored, there is a provision that, yeah, this person wants this variable to change in the future. So if at all I don't want the variable to change in the future, I can just leave it as it is, because all variables are by default, variables by default are immutable. So after sharing that, uh, we are going to have look at a practical approach. Yeah. So for example, so let me put it right here. So if at all I do this, let age is equal to 30, then you see what the intelligence is telling me, that you cannot assign to an unmutable. Yeah. So then I have to add here mute. So when I come and say let mute age equal to 30, so that means now my age, because I already told the compiler that age is mutable, it can change, so there is no need to worry about anything. I declared age as mutable, it can change. So then this is what I was trying to express here. So x is mutable by default. So when we saw the extension is returning an error that you cannot change an immutable value. So this is so in Cairo, if at all you've written some Rust code or C++ code, you find that so the main function is where the main function is like the the superior function over all other functions. So the main function in the code file or in the module is where all execution takes place. Yeah. So for example, if I come now and write here, and then how I declare the main function, so everything that I want to run has to be in the main function. And so I can have another function here, maybe trial. So how you declare a function, you start with fn keyword, then the name of the function. Yeah. And the name of the function is not supposed to be capital. So it's supposed to be in a snake case. Snake case, I mean this, if at all is more than one word, you can say that. So if at all this function maybe is returning 5, if at all I want that to run here, I have to, yeah. So that's the main function, is basically like the overall function where code execution takes place. Yeah. And that's how we declare it, but we're going to look at it in details. But just to follow my slides, in the previous slide I was talking about, so when you declare a function, when you declare a variable and then you change something without declaring it as mutable, it will complain. So the right way would be let mute x is equal to 5, because now when you say that, it means you've declared it as mutable. So after understanding, is there any question about mutability that you want to ask before maybe we head on to another thing? Is there any question about mutability? Free to ask any question in the group chat. Is there any questions about mutability, guys? Okay, it's clear on your end. Any other questions before I move on to constant? Because mutability is really, we're gonna, if at all you haven't understood it properly, it's really a fundamental concept. And so, yeah, now that many of us have understood, most of us have understood mutability. So, so we declare functions independently, but they should be referenced in the main function to run. Yeah, you declare them independently, and we are going to look at functions in more details. I'm just trying to do a rough introduction to them, to introduce them to us. So constants, yeah. So you declare constants using so guys, you realize that in every programming language, every programming language that you've attempted to use, actually, you cannot run away from constants, because constants solve a lot of problems. Yeah, yeah. Constants help to, there is. So when you're writing code or when you're writing a program, it's like you are coming up with a story, and you're trying to come up with the best way of how to express something. Yeah. So, and that's what constants do. Yeah, so constants help us, to better organize some things in our programs. And just like in any programming languages, constants are handy and we have to use them. So you declare constants using const keywords. Yeah, so like immutable variables, constants don't change as well. And then you can declare constants with mute keywords. So constants are not mutable. Constants, I not show here. Constants are just immutable by default. They are not just immutable by default. They are always immutable. So you'll never have a case where you are declaring a mute constant. So, but Cairo has a way to make variables mutable. Uh, no, I think this was it. It's not supposed to be there. So constants can be declared with any usual data type. So because I remember telling us that Cairo programming language is a statically typed language. So by that I mean that after your code is being run, and the computer at compile time, it has to know the data type, yeah, of whatever you're running. So that's why when you are writing everything, you have to write a data type with it. So we are going to look at that in the following few slides. So that's why it means that. So you can as well declare a const. For example, you can have a const as maybe names of students, maybe months in a year. Yeah, So then as well, constants can only be declared in the global scope of the program. Let me just explain that, the global scope. So when I have this here, this is a local scope. So everything that I've declared here is in the local scope, but in the global scope, it's everything that is out of there. So in the global scope, if at all I've declared something in the global scope, that means any function can have access to whatever I've declared in the global scope. Unlike when something is in the local scope, it means that only can you access it from the scope. Like this is scope. By scope I mean this. Yeah. So but when it's in the global scope, function have access to it. But for example, now if I told I have a function, maybe let me just call it make scope, and in this function I've said uh, let age equals to 50. And then if at all I have another function, maybe test scope. Now I cannot come and use age here because age is not in this scope here. Yeah. So for when something is in the global scope, it can be used, yeah, by any any function, or can be used in any piece of the code within this module. So a module is this whole file, yeah. A module is this whole file. So now when I'm declaring a constant, I have to use a const keyword, yeah, and it has to the constant. For example, months, it has to be in capital letters, yeah. And I remember saying that they can take any data type. So we are going to look at data type, the various data types that we have. But yeah, that's how you. So I can have months, and I can have year things, and so I we are going to look at the various data types in details. But before that, have to be named with only uppercase letters with underscore between. So that's a, you cannot declare a constant with lowercase letters. Yeah. So okay, okay. I think just a minute. So here I was giving an example that so guys, as I've said, you can use, you can, so constants can take a data type. They can take any data type, and we are going to look at all these data types. But if at all you are not new to programming, you realize that we have, for example, in languages, languages like Rust and maybe Python, we have things that are called like tuples. We have things like arrays. We have things like classes, and all these things are basically for us to categorize data. So you can see here, yes, let me try and go back. You can see here that my constant here, 1 hour in seconds, I've applied it with another data type, and then struct instance, structs, this is the struct data type. We are going to look at nothing to get worried of. And then enum instance, any enum, so we as well gonna look at it in details. Yeah, so you can create a constant, but you need to follow the rules that a constant has to be created with uppercase letters. Yeah. And then when you're having more than one word, yeah, you have to separate them with an underscore. So we are moving a bit so fast. So guys, in case you have some questions, you can put them in the chat, specifically about what we are covering. So in case guys you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. Any questions at this juncture? Can you give me a thumbs up if at all we at par? I don't want to leave anyone behind. It seems we are following properly. Let me introduce to us something here, following my slides here. So there are various concepts in how because every time you're writing a program, for example, if at all I'm working on a DAP which is supposed to be like a student management system, yeah, a student management system. So code is funded in such a way that so there are various concepts which are being put together on how you can make good meaning of what you. So it's about manipulating whatever we need to manipulate to come up with with the desired outcome, and there are various concepts which come along with that. Now we are going to look at what is called shadowing. So shadowing is one of those concepts where literally it helps you in writing code. Yeah. So it so happens that, how can I put this clearly? So for example, let me put, so guys, you don't need to be worried about anything. In case you don't get anything properly, you can just put it in the group chat. So let me give an example here about shadowing. So shadowing is one of those major concepts as well. So let me just say here, shadowing. So if at all I have x, yeah, and then I say x is 6. Remember I said we are supposed to add a data type, but let me introduce x here as a u8. So u8 means an unsigned integer, but we are going to see it's in the slide. So where I'm going to talk about integers and signed and unsigned integers. But for now, you just understand that u8 is an unsigned integer, and unsigned integer means it has no negative bit of it. So x can, here I'm trying to say x can never be a negative. So if at all, now what shadowing means is that I can come and say here, so what shadowing means here is that, so I'm referring to the same x here. So remember when I was introducing to us how data is stored is we have that memory cell. Now x is a variable, they have put it on the memory cell, yeah, and I've introduced, now that's this same, because what happens in compiled languages, you are trying to, in compiled languages what you are trying to do is that unlike interpreted languages, compiled languages, you are cautious about the data that you're working with. So for example, I happened to have a chance where I was working on a project and it was this hardware project, and we were writing using C language, and we were working on on a hardware project which it was a machine it was a machine which used to, yeah, it was sensing vandalization of telecom masks. So we're trying to build hardware devices and a system where we put sensors on these masks, yeah, and then these sensors can detect if someone is trying to cut down the mask, yeah, because companies could lose a lot of money when the mask is being put down. So the company was interning at was contracted to develop a system where, so it's like an IoT system. So we had sensors, and a sensor could be put on the mask, and these sensors could notify the nearby police, the nearby authority. It could notify the company, and then it could also notify us, the people who could run the system. So when we're working on this project, we had limited data that we're working on. So when you're working on hardware projects, what I'm trying to drive to some point here, that they can give you, you can work on about 20 kbs or 3 kbs of data. This is RAM, yeah. So all your operations are supposed to run on this RAM of 2 kb. So everything, when you're writing everything, you are supposed to be cautious that, first of all, how you write your code is supposed to be clean. You don't just write because you know you're wasting memory at the end of it. So when you write, if at all you have 2 kb, 2 kb is very small. So if at all you are writing code, you're supposed to not write unnecessary code. So that's the difference between compiled languages and interpreted languages. Low level languages, yeah, and higher level languages, yeah, because the low level languages talk directly to the machine. So this is the same thing that shadowing helps to do. So when x is, when I declare x right there after I've created it, yeah, so x is assigned a data type of u8, means it's an 8-bit unsigned integer. It means it can never have the negative bit of it. And then I've added a value of 6 to it. Now shadowing, what it helps to do is that this same x, yeah, So I'm not now creating a new memory cell. I'm referring to the other various memory cell. So now this same various so let me add here something like a comment memory cell here. Just a minute. In this memory cell here, x is 8. Yeah. So now when what shadowing does is that I don't need to create a new memory cell. I'm simply referring to the same memory cell, but I'm only changing the value. So what does that mean? That when I don't create a new memory cell, yeah, when I don't create a new variable and store it in a new memory cell, that means I'm saving my data. So I don't I can you try to understand it that way? Yeah. Any questions about that? So we're gonna use shadowing quite a lot in our in our sessions, but I want you to understand the sole importance of shadowing. So when I'm shadowing something, I've not created a new x variable, but I've only changed the value of x. So in that, I'm saving data, I'm saving space, I'm saving memory, because we are working against, like, we have limited memory we're working with. So I don't know whether any questions about that before I proceed. Guys, any questions about that, about shadowing? Okay, it seems there are no questions about shadowing. So you may ask yourself now, what's the difference between using mute and shadowing? So the main difference is that by shadowing a variable, the compiler will not complain if you change its type. Yeah. So we are not changing. We are not changing the only thing that we are do, because I can decide to assign x and a new variable. Yeah. But remember, I said that when you are shadowing, you are only changing the value attached to it. So for example, if initially x was x, let x, as it says here, x equal to 2. So then if I decide to be like, now I want x to be a string. So shadowing is helping me that I'm not changing, I'm not the memory, the x is still stored at that memory cell, but what I'm only changing is the value now in the x in that cell. So before we go to data types, do you guys have any questions? Someone is someone should mute themselves. Okay. Do you guys have any questions about shadowing before I go to data types? I just want to be clear that on we are at par. Any questions, guys? If at all there are no questions, so we're gonna look at data types. So I will re-echo it here that of course in every languages you have to know how you can manipulate data, because in every languages, remember, we are handling data, and we are dealing with data. So data has to be manipulated, and how we handle data, I remember telling us that the difference between the compiled languages and interpreted languages, that for interpreted languages, even currently there, I understand right now, like with the language like with JavaScript now, you find that TypeScript has taken over, because they're trying to remove any loopholes, any flaws, yeah, when you're working the language. And knowing the data of the data type of the data you're handling is very critical. Yeah. So what knowing a data type, what saves us is that something cannot just change instantly, because I've already said that a name must be a string. So there is no way a name can be a number. So there is a disadvantage if at all you don't declare a name as a string. So that's what data types are about. Cairo is a statically typed language, so all variable types must be known at compile time. And these data types are categorized into scalar data types and then compound data types. So what are scalar types? So scalar types, so we have a field type. Yeah. So a field type, I want us to understand it at the moment that the field type is, so Cairo has a default data type and it's a field type. So if at all anything has not been assigned a data type, it will be assigned a field type. So we're going to look at the field type in detail. And then we have an integer type. So an integer type, so integers, remember integers can be negative, so integers are negatives and positives. So but if I declare where, like if at all I don't add, let me give us a practical bit here. So for example here, if I say let y equals 7, you know what guys this means? This means that y here can have the negative bit of it and the positive bit of it. That's what it means. It means that y can be negative, can uh, like, because uh, so it's negative 127 or negative 128 to 0 127. So every number has a negative representation and a positive representation. So but you need to be more specific. So when I declare it like that, so every number has a negative bit of it and a positive bit of it. So when I declare let y equal to 7, it means y can be as well negative. Yeah. But when I come and say let y unsigned 8-bit integer, it means unsigned here means y can never be negative. That's what it means. So y can only be positive. And you realize that for cases, for example, if at all I want to store age can never be negative. So I have to store age with a u and unsigned. I have to store age as an unsigned integer, because age can never be negative. So I just wanted to rectify that. So then we have a boolean type. We have a boolean type. So for booleans, so if I say, so this is a boolean. So boolean is this, it's true or false. So that's a boolean type. Then so after boolean type, we have a string type. So strings can be short strings or byte array strings. So short strings are literally like characters. Yeah. And then byte array strings are used for storing long strings. So for example here, if at all I have let car, so when I declare so when I declare a like this here, so when I declare a like this here, it means a is a short string. But when I declare, for example, uh, when I declare it like that, this is a long string, and it's called a byte array. So this is a byte array, and then this is a short string. So that's the difference right here. Yeah. So this is a byte array. So long strings are byte arrays. Yeah. and then these ones are short strings. So byte arrays are long strings. For example, in case short strings are only one character. Yeah. And then I want us to see the difference here, that you realize that for short strings, you've only put them in, you only need single, what are these called? Single, you put them in single, are they called hyphens or what? But for long strings, which are called byte array type, which is the where the byte array type is responsible for long strings, you have to use double. Yeah. But the biggest difference now, I want to let you know that in languages like Python, if I've declared a variable, yeah, if I've said that a is equal to, if I say in languages like Python, when I say name j, so say something like that, that's correct. And then when I say j, that's also correct. So you get, but here there is a difference between how you, so for example, I cannot declare a byte array with only this, with only a single quotes. I cannot declare it, it's wrong. I have to declare it with, double quotes. So that's the biggest difference. Hopefully that's very clear. So guys, do you have any questions in regards to what we are sharing? Any questions about data types? Anything that you need me to rectify, please, you can just raise it. And yeah, since guys are following properly. So after that, so I said our data types are categorized into scalar types and then compound types. So in compound types, we have tuples, we have unity types, and we have fixed sized array types. So we are gonna look at these a lot when we are categorizing our data, the tuples. So, but basically, let's start with the tuples. So I want us to understand tuples as this. So in a tuple, basically, it's not similar from, I know I guys, I come from a Python background, so don't, I can make a lot of relations on how tuples are in Python and how tuples are here. So tuples in general is that tuples can hold elements with different data types, so that's one advantage. And then the other thing is that tuples are immutable. So immutability, I mean that you cannot change, okay, you cannot change the position of an element in a tuple. It's a similar case here. So for example, let me show it to us in, so tuples right here. When I'm creating a tuple, I just say let my tuple equal, yeah, I can say let my tuple, and when I'm creating it, I have to use these curly brackets. So I can say true, I can say 6, and I can say no. Yeah, that's my tuple here. Yeah, and then as well, maybe I've declared the data type. Yeah, so I recall telling us that the data type in a tuple can be what can be, it's not the same data type, so that's the advantage. So if I do that now, when I, if at all I say uh, z h k equal to my tuple. So what I'm trying to mean is that the positional argument, the positional argument for z, h, k. So in this case, z is equal to true. Yeah, h is equal to 6, and then k is equal to no. So that's how tuples work. So this is correct. So I want us to understand that tuples, you can store elements which are not of the same data type. That's what I'm trying to put forth. Yeah. For example, even here I can have, even here I can as well have an array. I can have like various data types. So that's what I'm trying to mean, that in a tuple you can store various elements with different data types, and it's not the same case with other 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 data types. Yeah, so we're gonna use tuples a lot, but so unit type, basically it's we are looking at something which is not doing anything. So it's so let me give you a case scenario where you need to use a unit type. Okay, a unit type can best be used if at all uh, just imagine a case scenario where you are just having a function. uh Okay, what best example can I have? So okay, trying to get the right example for us to when we need to use a unit type, but this is a unit type. Basically so in a unit type you are not having data there, but it's just a representation. So that's, I want us to understand the unit type in that layman's understanding. So that's a unit type, for example, right there. So and then we have another data type which is called arrays, and yeah, arrays are fixed size arrays. So the advantage with arrays that so you're supposed to tell, yeah, the length of the array when you're creating it and the data type. So for example, here if you are to look at my array right here, so I've declared it. And how you declare an array, you use square brackets. And the difference between arrays and tuples is that in arrays you have to use the same data type. So we cannot have strings and integers in the same array. And then you're supposed to declare the length of the array when you're creating it. So here you can see the first positional argument is that I've declared that this is going to be unsigned 64-bit. These are going to be unsigned 64-bit integers, and they are going to be 5 in number. So and then I gave a use case here where you need to use arrays. So arrays are used for storing elements where you know the exact length won't change. So are we at par, guys? You can just type in case you have any queries in the chat, and I'll reply. So we use arrays where you know you're going to have elements, and you know, for example, if at all I know that the months of of a year will never change. Like they always have to be 12. So I can use array to store data about months. If I know that they will never exceed 12, yeah, we can never have 13 months. That's what I'm trying to mean. So working with fixed size array, okay. Guys, in case there's something that you're not getting properly, don't get scared about raising it up. And so if at all I said my array, so then I said we have to declare. So for example, let me give them a data type of U8, and then as well I say how many they are in number. Now I come and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Finish now constructing my array right there. So it's having a data type of 8. U8 means 5. So we're having 5 elements which can never be negative. And then when I come and say, so I'm trying to bring a concept called destructuring arrays. So now when I come and say AB, so when I say that, it means that I'm trying to destructure this array. Yeah, I'm trying to copy what is in my array, this array called my array, but I'm only interested in the first 3 characters. And you will see that here, let me just go and show it to my slides. Yeah, I'm only interested in the first 3 characters. What is my terminal complaining about? Okay. So when I come and say that this is, I'm only interested so when I come and say that just a minute, let me try and clean up here. I hate seeing those red highlights. So when I say here that my array is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I come and destructure it and I say ABC, that means here A is 1, so I'm destructuring. B is 2, and C is 3. Yeah, so if at all I don't add this, yeah, because remember I'm trying to copy my array and it's supposed to have the same length. Yeah, so this array right here is supposed to have the same length as my array. So I'm only telling the compiler that I'm only interested in the first 3. These other remaining ones you can just skip. And how we skip is you just by me adding an underscore, it means I don't want to do anything with them. Yeah, I'm only interested in A, B, and C. I don't know whether you guys get that. We are going to have a practical session about it. So, any questions at that moment, guys? See, our time is really going so fast. Any questions? Guys, I don't want to leave anyone behind. So, I request if at all you have anything that you're not grasping well, you can. Okay. So what if you don't put, okay, let me put the question. What if you don't put the underscores, you just close the bracket? It will complain because it expects so because I'm attempting, what if you don't put the underscores, you just close the brackets? So I want us to imagine, so I'm attempting to copy my array. Yeah, so even here it's saying you have an error. Wrong number of fixed size array elements in pattern. Expected 5 got 3 because when I was creating, yeah, so these arrays here have a fixed. When I was creating it, I created it with 5 elements, and so for you are trying to copy me, but you're not giving me, you're not following my rules. So that's why you have to add the underscores. So when you add that, it's supposed to stop complaining. So yeah. So then if I come and print ln here, so how we print in Cairo is that uh, so when I come and print a uh, b c, so how we print in Cairo is that okay. Alright, okay. And so how we print data to 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 the screen, we are going to run this and then I show you that you say print ln and then you add this exclamation. You can just say it says print to the standard output with a new line. So how we run our programs. So for example, I want to run the first this program here. So this is check with Cairo. Remember I said the execution takes place from lib.cairo. So now in lib.cairo here, that find for me this file here, check.cairo, and run it. So it's supposed to run it without any issues, because how we run in Cairo is we say Scarb. Scarb is our package manager. So we say Scarb Cairo run. So that is supposed to, so those are warnings. Never mind. We don't have any errors. Those are just warnings. So why is it taking long to print answer? So you see guys, so it has printed that run completed successfully. A is 1 as we expected, B is equal to 2, and then C is 3. So running properly without any issues. So you're saying, what does that curly brackets mean that is in the print statement? So the curly brackets, basically what it's supposed to help us with is that if at all I want to print any variable and I want to access any variable and I want to access it maybe from a string representation, I'm supposed to use those curly. Yeah, I'm supposed to use those curly brackets. Then you are saying, can't one print and have the results output in the terminal? Yeah, but I've just printed. Hopefully you've seen. So run completed successfully. You see my results. Yeah. So I'm running it from the terminal, as you can see. So hopefully that clears out things. Yeah. So guys, in case you have any queries, feel free. So yeah. So we've looked at that. As our time is running pretty so fast, and I feel we are understanding things. So accessing array elements. So to access of an array, first convey the array to a span. So still I'll make a relation to Python. So if at all these are my array elements, yeah, in languages in Python, in case I want, you can use, okay. Someone is saying I made the terminal in VS Code. Yeah, you can use the terminal in VS Code, but for me, I just like using. Yeah, VS Code has the terminal, but for me, I just like using a separate terminal. But you can always use terminals in VS Code. It's the same, as long as you redirect to the right folder directory. As long as you redirect properly to where your project is, it will always run. So Guys, in languages like so this is what happens that in languages like Python, yeah. So how arrays are is that when you want to get the positional, so just like a number line, for example, I want you to take a scenario where you are seated in a class, yeah, where you are seated in a class, and so I want to take an example where I seated in a class, and you are seated on a chair, and all these chairs are in a row, and you have columns, like probably you have 10 columns in a class. So you'll find that someone who is on the first row, probably you have someone seat number one, seat number two, seat number three, but on what? On on the first row. So if at all I want to get the person on row, I will use a number line system. I will be like, the first row is represented by 0 index. So this is my first row here. This is my second row. This is my third, fourth, and fifth. So, but the positional argument is 0 here, 1. So let me just use a marker here. So let me just put pen. So this is 0. This is 1. This is 2. This is 3. This is 4. So those are the positional arguments. In case I want to access element 1, its positional argument is 0. In case I want to access element 2, the second element, its positional argument will be 1, like that. So, but in languages like Python, you just in languages like Python, you don't need to first convert. So here I'm saying to access means of a fixed size array by index. Yeah, by index means accessing the position argument. You don't need to, you have to first convert it to a span. So a span is also a data type. So for us to access the elements, yeah, in an array type, you have to first convert it to a span data type. But in languages like Python, you don't need to first convert it. You can access the elements with their position arguments directly. So, but here you have to first convert. So let my span equal to my array dot span. So the span method is a method to convert it to the span, to convert the array to the span data type. And then now, guys, I want us to note this, that to access elements, for example, the position argument for element, the third element is 2. So you first write the name of the span and then square brackets. So this 2 gives me the positional argument for this third element. So when you run it, it will give us the, so for example, if I have here, so first converting, so how to first converting to a span, I can just be like my array dot span. So now I want to access, for example, this, the first element. Accessing the first element, I'll just be like print ln, the first element, then so I'll just come here and say new span, and then I come and then I put the first element is positional argument 0. So I save, then I want to run. So let me run my code. So it's supposed to give me the element. So using the first element 1 as we predicted, because the first element here is 1 at the position 0. So for me to access 1, the first element, I use position argument 0. So now if I come and put position argument 2, and Control S. Yeah. So I'll just come and do that. Yeah, the first element 3. So you can see that at 3 is at 0, 1, 2. So to access 3, I have to use I have to use the position argument, which is 2. So hopefully that's clear, guys. So in case you have any questions about that, you can just ask in the chat. So in case there are no questions, yeah, so we've looked at that. And now we are looking at functions. So yeah, I remember I talked about functions. So functions, yeah, we are going to deal with functions. In function is actually where we put our logic. Yeah, so we are going to look at functions quite a lot, and yeah, you have to learn how to, because most like uh yeah, we put it in functions, we embody it in functions, and yeah, so we're gonna look at functions quite a lot. So Cairo code uses snake case as the convention style for function and variable names, in which all letters are lowercase and underscores separate words. Yeah, so I will repeat that. So uh all letters have to be lowercase and underscores separate words. So you can only use underscores to separate the words, and you cannot have a function name which is in capital letters. So we've looked at functions, and you declare it with this function keyword and then the name followed by the parentheses. So in function, so your functions have to take in some, maybe you want to supply uh, maybe you want the functions to be meaningful, to be doing something. You have to supply the name and supply in the grid. So you have to, maybe you want your functions to take in values. Maybe they are solving something, maybe you are finding the number of users, so you have to supply your function with data. So as you can see here, guys, that so this is a parameter, name is a parameter, and I'm giving it a byte array type. Grid is a parameter as well. Yeah, so, and when I've given it a type, I'm supposed to give it the data. When passing the parameter, I'm supposed to pass it in with the data type that it expects. Yeah, so we're gonna look at that in details. So for example, in this case scenario, okay, so named parameters. So for example, I have my function here called check function. Yeah, and it's taking in a width, which is, because width can never be negative, so it's taking in a width which is an unsigned integer 8, and it's taking in a height as well. So named parameters are, so if I have a scenario where um, so okay, let me just explain this. So if let me just explain this practically. If at all this is my function, yeah, and I remember telling us that the open function, yeah, the main function is where all execution takes place. So after declaring my function and I want to run this function, it's supposed to be called from within the main function, because I want it to be declared. And I've called it with the width 1, and then with height, which is this one. So these are the named parameters. So the parameter is like the value you are assigning to the arguments. So the parameters is sorry about that. So these are the parameters. Yeah. Now the value is the arguments. So the value parameter is the arguments. But now, if at all you have a scenario where you're having your parameters width, height, and then you have as well declared your the arguments as 2040, but then these parameters have the same name, the ones you are passing through the function have the same name as the parameters you when you are creating the function you declared it with the signature. So these are signatures. It has a width and then it has a height. Yeah, so if at all this is the same as the ones the arguments that you want to pass in, you don't need again to say here. I don't need again to say width, height. So since the name is the same, yeah, I don't know whether that makes some sense, but yeah, I don't need to say width, height, since the same name is the same. So yeah, your function can as well have a return value, and every time your function is returning something, you have to add the return value. So here my function is taking in a height and then a width. So the height is an unsigned integer, 8-bit integer, then the width is also an unsigned 8-bit integer, and I want to get the area. Since area we get it by saying height times width, and since the data type is the same, it will definitely return an 8-bit signed integer. So let me just have a practical bit about that. So if at all I'm having my function with 6a8, yeah, sorry, this is supposed to be maybe it can be, because I want to calculate the area, and area is length term with this. So when I calculate area times width, the data type won't change. Let area equal to width times height, and then it's returning me area. Yeah. So now when I come and I want my function to run, I'll just call that function calculate area. Then I'll give it here maybe 10, and then I'll give it here 20. So to eliminate all, so now let me run my code. So my code is supposed to give me 200. So when I run Scarb Cairo run, so guys, in case there's something you're not getting, you can just raise it up in the group chat, and yeah, but hopefully everything is entering. My code is not returning anything. So because I'm not actually telling it to, so it's running properly, but I'm not telling it to print anything. So, but now let me come and do this. Let my area equals to that. Actually, here I just come even and say that because I already know the data type is a U8. So now when I come and say, here, so now it's supposed to print for me. In the initial case, it was not printing anything because I was not instructing it to print. Now it's supposed to print for me the area. Are you saying my area is 200? Yeah, as expected, it's supposed to multiply 10 by 20. So that was just a simple illustration. So guys, in case you have any questions, please feel free. We're handling functions. Now we're gonna look at functions in more details when you're writing code, but now let's look at practical flow. So practical flow, this is more like cases we are using to manipulate our data. So for example, if at all We have when you're writing data and maybe you have a lot of data and you're looking for ways of how to filter it, there are control flows that like if, else, and this is how you write your if statements or if students, else. So you can have if cases, else if cases. For example, if at all I have like two elements and maybe they are all the same value. Okay, maybe there are two people, they're all of the same age, but I want to have another situation where I can differentiate them. Now I can go to be like this person is black skin, this person is light skin, but they're all of the same age. That's why the if else if case comes in. So just to find another way you can differentiate, and then the else is if at all these cases have failed. So that's how we use them. We're gonna see it a lot in details. So I really wanted us to have a practical implementation of everything that we've covered, but I think we've had some practical bits of it, but that's it. So guys, if at all you have any questions, please please raise it. So I'm going to end so my sliding there. We are in terms of time, but I welcome any questions, guys. In case you have any questions, feel free to ask. Any questions,
Uh,
guys?
Thank you so much for today's session. We really appreciate. We have learned a lot. I basically have learned a lot. Yeah, this language is kind of similar to C, C++. But my question is, at the end of learning the basics of this language, what are we going to use as our front end, such that maybe if we are looking at a complete project
Okay.
that we are to host, something like that,
Oh,
or
so
maybe you can talk about a clear roadmap for
okay.
the entire project that we are likely going to do as far as this course is concerned.
Oh, thank you so much, David. So yeah, so of course this is smart contract. So this is for the back end. So the front end we are going to use, there is a it's a Next.js. So it's called Starknet React. It's in Next.js. So Starknet React helps us combine the front, the Starknet, and so that whatever is happening. Okay, I'm breaking. I think it's the video. Let me stop my video. So yeah, so what I was saying is that in the end we are going to have a session where we are looking at front end integration with the back end. Now this here is for the back end. So Starknet has can I call it a package or using Next.js. So there's something which is bundled with which you can use to integrate Starknet, yeah, and with your front end. So it uses Next.js. So yeah, we are gonna have that session where we are combining and we are going to use, it's called, let me put it in the chat here. It's called Starknet React. And then there are many as well. There is Starknet Scaffolds. So Starknet React helps you once it's installed. It helps you. It's bundled. It's bundled with whatever you need to work with your Starknet smart contract. So it's what we are going to be using when we've written, maybe you've built your e-commerce application on the blockchain, and you need to now it to you have built your smart contract, you have deployed it on the blockchain. Now you want it to integrate it with the front end. So we use Starknet React So we are going to be looking at all those. I'm going to share, I think, a guide to everything there. So hopefully I answered your question properly, Davis. So any questions, Davis? In case I answered you properly, you can just give me a thumbs up. Any questions, guys?
Yeah, you have answered correctly. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any questions from anyone else? Well, in case there are no questions, I think we can call it a good night. So thank you, members, for joining. So our next session is going to be on Tuesday. Yeah, next session is very practical. So yeah, get
Maybe
yeah.
I have a concern.
Uh-huh.
Uh, since we have a lot to learn, a lot to
Uh-huh.
capture. For
Mm-hmm.
example, React is that React containing JavaScript, right?
Yeah.
So it's containing JavaScript, right?
Yeah.
So since we have a lot to cover, shouldn't we
Mm-hmm.
increase the number of sessions at least to 3 in a week? Because putting Cairo, React, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, all those things really doesn't it require so much more time?
But the front end is actually not hard because there are very many templates you can work around with. The hardest bit of it is in the back end. The front end is easy because you can get a template, you can fork someone's thing that they have done. It's not hard to work around with. The tricky bit of it is the back end. Once you've grasped the back end, the front end is easy to deal with. And in the front end, we are not like we are going to build a very big thing. We just need to show case scenarios where we are adding data to the database, to the blockchain, and where we are getting data from the blockchain, making a delete, making a put. So I really want us to maintain it to 2 sessions because 3 sessions can be quite a lot of work. So I would really want us to maintain it to 2 sessions. Yeah, so in case there are no any further questions, thank you guys for joining. And uh, let's meet again on Tuesday. Yeah, in case there's something you didn't get properly, you can always reach out in the WhatsApp group. And then you can as well always reach out to me on my WhatsApp number. And yeah, I believe we're gonna learn a lot. So yeah, good night, guys, for now. Bye bye.